Howdy, howdy, Dalton Middle School. Welcome to episode 2 of Cat Calling with Miss C. That's right. I'm gesturing in this direction because I think that's where the graphic will be. We'll see what happens. I don't know. Otherwise, just, enjoy me doing this gesture uselessly for a while. Great. Now that we've done that, by the way, I hope you all are using this time to explore some cool outfit choices, right? Like check this action that I got going on here. Because why not? We're all at home in isolation or socially distancing. There's nobody to judge us for the way that we look or the way that we dress, which is pretty sweet. So why not experiment? Pull some weird stuff out of your closet, right? I got my fancy prom dress here with my nice denim jumper. Denim, very important. You all know that I don't go a day without my denim, okay? So, and plus now, pockets. Check that out. This is my farmer princess look, right? Because I'm a princess and I'm going to a ball doesn't mean that I can't stop and plant some crops along the way. That's the kind of princess I would want. I don't know about you guys. Anyway, gotten some great emails for you guys. Got some shout outs coming out here in just a few. If you do have a shout out, a message you'd like to send out, a poem, a short story, anything, take some pictures, send me some messages, shoot me some content, you guys. It's not super entertaining watching me just stand up here. You guys know that I prefer to watch you do your stuff, all right? So send it to this address. Again, I'm gesturing because I think this is where the email address will come up, dmstalkshow2020@gmail.com. Send that information on over, whatever. In fact, let's get to a couple of those shout outs here now. We'll take a seat on our comfy sofa here. That's right. Oh, our princess is also ready for a slumber party. Very important. We got our hydrating beverage. This isn't coffee, this is tea. Hydration being one of my core values. That and honesty, the 2 H's. That's what I live by. Hydration and honesty. Very important. Let's see what you guys have to say, right? Okay. Here we go. First of all, big shout out to 6th grader Nariah Jenkins. Howdy, Nariah. Hope you're having a great day. Shoot me a message back. Let me know. Are you having a great day? I really want to know now that I've seen your name here. We got this shout out going on. We also have a question for the crowd out here, an inquiry. Someone wanted to know, who do we think is the best 8th grade football manager? Now, this is a hot topic, you guys. I am not personally qualified to speak to this. Maybe Coach Natola, you got some insight on this. But I think, any of you guys out there, who is the best 8th grade football manager? And why? Why do you think? Send that information in. I'd love to hear more about this hot topic. Finally, we got a nice shout out here from a couple of our 8th graders to the cast and crew of Peter Pan. I was very touched to see this personally. Thank you for an inspirational performance last Friday. We rolled into sort of a weird time and a weird weekend, and it was cool, is what I'm getting here, that you guys got to perform for us. A lot of people, there were actually a few people that shouted out to you guys. So thanking you for your art, for your time. Gives me the warm fuzzies, definitely, not gonna lie. So for today's episode, I'm not gonna make you watch me fake cook. Instead, we have a very special guest who's gonna be joining us today, exhibiting some creative activities that you guys can do at home yourselves. Let's go over to that. We are very excited to have as our first official guest on Cat Calling with Miss C, the DMS Cougars talk show, Very special guest, a good friend of mine and yours. We all know him. We all love him. Our Art 2 teacher, Mr. Brauer. Say hello, Mr. Brauer.
Hey, what's up, DMS?
Mr. Brauer, how's everything going over there? I miss seeing you every day.
Well, things are going okay. Just trying to find things to do in all this time that we've got just sitting at home. So I figure other people are in the same situation, so might as well share some things that you can do at home too.
I think that's great. I mean, I've cleaned my apartment. I organized this studio recording space. I'm drinking a lot of tea. Are you staying hydrated, Mr. Brauer? That's one of my core values.
Oh, absolutely. Hydration is key.
It is extremely important. Well, Mr. Brauer, we're thrilled to have you on, and we're looking forward to seeing this project you have to share with us. And hey, hopefully you guys at home, this is something you can try out too.
Absolutely. Well, hey, yeah. So, like I said, I like to do little tactile projects at home. And since I've got more time, one of my favorite things to do is take something 2D and make it 3D. And so origami is perfect for that, right? So origami is paper folding and creating objects from a flat sheet of paper. So one of the projects that I think is super fun and kids tend to get into is one called Sonobe. And there will be some video links in the description that you guys can follow, but Sonobe is a modular design, which means that you take single units that are all the same, and then you can make multiple different things out of them, kind of like Legos.
Oh, neat. So you're building smaller versions of things that can then be combined to create a larger creation. Is that, am I following along here?
Yeah, you're creating identical small pieces, just a lot of them, and then you can assemble them in many different ways.
Oh, very nice. All right, well, let's see what you got, Mr. Brauer.
Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is paper and scissors. That's pretty much, if you got paper and scissors, you can make this project. But the paper needs to be in identical squares to start. So oftentimes it's helpful to measure out your paper first and then figure out a little math problem, little geometry problem, how many squares you can get out of it that would all be the same size. If you're working with like a 7 by 11 sheet of paper, usually you could do like 3 or 4 inch squares, and that would work out well. I mean 8.5 by 11. That's what I meant. But you make an item that looks like this. Doesn't look like much. It's kind of like what do you call that? Trapezoid, right? No. Yes.
Yeah.
Rhombus. That's right.
Parallelogram. No, wait.
Actually, yeah, it's a parallelogram.
Right?
It is. But this one has some divots on it. And so the one of the videos will show you how to make this. And this is essentially key to making all sorts of different objects. The one thing you got to be careful is you can make it backwards. And so you want to just make sure that you're making them all identical. Okay. So like you can see these two, the triangles lean the same way. Whereas this one, it leans differently. Anyway, so once you get these, then you like put them together and you make different shapes. This is an example of 3 put together. One of them is green, so it's kind of phasing in and out of existence. But there it is right there, you can see. And then once you've made shapes like these, you can assemble them together to make various cool things. Like here's one that I made. Oop, it's a cube that also faces in and out of existence because of the green screen. And here's another one. This is a dodecahedron, which is a 12-sided 3D shape. So these are really fun. You can use them as ornaments to hang. You can use them as dice, and you can make them even like larger. With like they have some combinations that have like 128 pieces that you can make into this like gigantic one and everything. It's like a puzzle. So it's a lot of fun just from scissors and paper.
That's really cool. And you're going to provide us with some links that I can share to be able to.
Yes, absolutely. Check out the links in the description below.
They might be there. I don't know where they are at this point. We'll figure it out in post. It's all good. You know, this reminds me of a math lesson, actually, the concept of fractals, where we have several small identical shapes that are put together to create a larger whole, right? One of the
Absolutely.
math teachers hopefully will chime in and back me up on this.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's an exponential growth. And so we should have some positive exponential growth in our lives right now.
Definitely need some positivity out here in the world. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing your art and your smile and yourself. I miss you, Mr. Brauer.
Hey, I miss you, Miss C.
Any special goodbyes? You know, well, that sounded dark, didn't it? Any special words you want to say to your students, to the people of DMS, the fine Dalton Middle School community before we sign off?
Just that I miss all of y'all, seeing all y'all face to face, and we'll get through this, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the other side.
Hey, thanks so much, Mr. Brauer. And I'm definitely going to share those links so you guys can create these cool paper origami projects on your own at home. When you make them, take a picture of them, right? Share with us. Just because we're not there together doesn't mean we can't share. That sounds like a good rhyme. Just because we're not there doesn't mean we can't
share.
Somebody quote me on that. Someone write that down. Or don't. It's on video. We all got it documented. All right. Thanks a lot, Mr. Brauer. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care.
I've been looking forward all week to coming back and talking to you guys. It's really exciting time. I'm sorry. It's really, I thought I had my phone turned off. It was on silent, but I'm getting a hello. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I told you not to call me. I'm in the middle of recording an episode. Catcalling with Miss C, the DMS Cougars talk show. It's a really bad time. Look, I know, okay, yes, and I would love to get dinner with you when this is all over, but we're supposed to be socially distancing right now. That's the whole thing. Look, if you want to cook up some mac and cheese on your end, and I'll cook some cookies on mine. That's something that I know real good how to do. You know, we can have an dinner together. I don't care how many diamonds you mine. Okay. Look, we'll talk about this later. I got to get back to the show. All right. Yes, I do. I can't. No, I won't be able to smell what you're cooking. That's a good joke, though. Okay. Yep. Okay. Thanks, Dwayne. All right. Bye. Every time, you guys. All right, guys. I think that's enough. I think we did it. It's a thing that was done. Good job, us. Good job, you. Good job, me. Episode 2, Catcalling with Miss C. Send in your shout outs. Send in some pictures. Hey, send in some video of you guys. Shouldn't just be me and your teachers up here. This is for you. Send in a video of you sharing something with us. You know, maybe you have a craft project or a story you wrote or some art that you want to share with all of us, or you just want to say hello. Send it on over. DMS Talk Show 2020 at gmail.com. I'm Miss C. That's me. This has been Catcalling with Miss C, the DMS Cougars talk show. Again, telling you guys, your hands, wash them, each other. Love them. We'll see you next time, guys. I'd like to do a little sharing myself today. One of the things that I miss the most about, not being at school or being able to be in plays and go to rehearsals, the things that I like to do in my normal social time, is that I don't get to tell stories and be part of storytelling with you guys or with my friends. So if you'll permit me, I'd love to share a story with you guys today and maybe on our ongoing episodes as well. This is a series of stories, actually, one of my favorite books from when I was in Dalton Middle School years ago. Coughing in my elbow, very important. So, Sideways Stories from Wayside School. There it is. Well, it might be mirrored. Hopefully you can read that. If not, hold your device up to a mirror. It'll be a fun experiment. It's by Louis Sacker. It's a great book, great series of stories about a school very much like ours, very much like Dalton Middle School, in fact, but with a few key differences. And those are explored in the introduction here, which is aptly named Introduction. Let's see what they have to say. This book contains 30 stories about the children and teachers at Wayside School. But before we get to them, there's something you ought to know so you don't get confused. Wayside School was accidentally built sideways. It was supposed to be only 1 story high with 30 classrooms all in a row, sort of like Dalton Middle School, right? Instead, it's 30 stories high with 1 classroom on each story. The builder said he was very sorry. Yikes. The children at Wayside School, they like having a sideways school. It means they have an extra large playground. The children and teachers described in this book all go to class on the top floor. So there are 30 stories from the 30th story of Wayside School. It has been said that these stories are strange and silly. That is probably true. However, when I told stories about you to the children at Wayside, they thought you were strange and silly. That is also probably true. Story number 1. Mrs. Gorf. Yikes. Mrs. Gorf had a long tongue and pointed ears. She was the meanest teacher at Wayside School. Yikes. Does that make you think of anybody? I hope not. She taught the class on the 30th story. If you children are bad, she warned, or if you answer a problem wrong, I'll wiggle my ears, stick out my tongue, and I'll turn you into apples. Mrs. Gorf didn't like children, but she loved apples. Wow, I do love apples, but I also like you guys. All right, I'm feeling better about this. Let's continue. Joe couldn't add. He couldn't even count, but he knew that if he answered a problem wrong, he'd get turned into an apple. So he copied from John. He didn't like to cheat, but Mrs. Gorf had never taught him how to add. One day, Mrs. Gorf caught Joe copying John's paper. She wiggled her ears, first her right one, then her left, stuck out her tongue, and turned Joe into an apple. And then she turned John into an apple for letting Joe cheat. "Hey, that isn't fair," said Todd. "John was only trying to help a friend." Mrs. Gorf wiggled her ears, first her right one, then her left, stuck out her tongue, and turned Todd into an apple. "Does anyone else have an opinion?" she asked. Nobody said a word. Stephen started to cry. He couldn't help it. He was scared. Mrs. Gorf laughed and placed the 3 apples on her desk. And she turned to Stephen and said, "I do not allow crying in my classroom." She wiggled her ears, first her right one, then her left, stuck out her tongue, and turned Stephen into an apple. For the rest of the day, the children were absolutely quiet, and when they went home, they were too scared even to talk to their parents. But Joe, John, Todd, and Stephen couldn't go home. Mrs. Gorf just left them on her desk. They were able to talk to each other, but they didn't have much to say. The parents were very worried. They didn't know where their children were. Nobody seemed to know. The next day, Kathy was late for school. As soon as she walked in, Mrs. Gorf turned her into an apple. Paul sneezed during class. He was turned into an apple. Nancy said, "God bless you," when Paul sneezed. Mrs. Gorf wiggled her ears, first her right one, then her left, stuck out her tongue, and turned Nancy into an apple. Terrence fell out of his chair. He was turned into an apple. Mauricia tried to run away. She was halfway to the door as Mrs. Gorf's right ear started to wiggle. When she reached the door, Mrs. Gorf's left ear wiggled. Mauricia opened the door and had one foot outside when Mrs. Gorf stuck out her tongue and Mauricia became an apple. Mrs. Gorf picked up the apple from the floor and put it on her desk with the others. Then a funny thing happened. Mrs. Gorf turned around and fell on a piece of chalk. For those of you who aren't in the know, once upon a time, teachers taught with chalk on a chalkboard. Yeah. Imagine that. The 3 Erics laughed. They were turned into apples. Mrs. Gorf had a dozen apples on her desk. Joe, John, Todd, Stephen, Kathy, Paul, Nancy, Terrence, Mauricia, and the 3 Erics, Eric Fry, Eric Bacon, and Eric Ovens. Lewis, the yard teacher, walked into the classroom. He'd missed the children at recess. He'd heard that Mrs. Gorf was a mean teacher, so he came up to investigate. He saw the 12 apples on Mrs. Gorf's desk. I must be wrong, he thought. She must be a good teacher if so many children bring her apples. He walked back to the playground. The next day, a dozen more children were turned into apples. Lewis, the yard teacher, came back up to the room. He saw 24 apples on Mrs. Gorf's desk. There were only 3 children left in the class. She must be the best teacher in the world, he thought. By the end of the week, all the children were apples. Mrs. Gorf was very happy. "Now I can go home," she said. "I don't have to teach anymore. I won't have to walk up 30 flights of stairs ever again." "You're not going anywhere," shouted Todd, the apple. He jumped off the desk and bopped Mrs. Gorf on the nose. The rest of the apples followed. Mrs. Gorf fell on the floor. The apples jumped all over her. "Stop!" she shouted, "or I'll turn you into applesauce." But the apples didn't stop, and Mrs. Gorf could do nothing about it. "Turn us back into children," Todd demanded. Mrs. Gorf had no choice. She stuck out her tongue, wiggled her ears, this time her left one first, and then her right, and turned all the apples back into children. "All right," said Mauricia. "Let's go get Lewis. He'll know what to do." "No!" screamed Mrs. Gorf. "I'll turn you back into apples." She wiggled her ears, first her right one, then her left, and stuck out her tongue. But Jenny held up a mirror, and Mrs. Gorf turned herself into an apple. The children didn't know what to do. They didn't have a teacher. Even though Mrs. Gorf was mean, they didn't think it was right to leave her as an apple, but none of them knew how to wiggle their ears. Lewis, the yard teacher, walked in. where's Mrs. Gorf? Nobody said a word. Boy, am I hungry, said Lewis. I don't think Mrs. Gorf would mind if I ate this apple. After all, she always has so many. He picked up the apple, which was really Mrs. Gorf, shined it on his shirt, and ate it. Yikes. That's story 1 from Sideways Stories from Wayside School. Hey, if you like it, let me know. We'll carry on to story number 2.